So I'll try to at least poke my head out the door and show you what those are, and then kind of explain them from there. But basically, where we start is for our fall activities. We focus on dry fertilizer and lime applications, which lime is to adjust the pH, and then fertilizer obviously to grow a crop. In order for your fertilizers to work correctly, pH is a very important part of that. And how we do it, we set up the trucking on our own. So we hire a local trucking company to truck it for us. We do have our own semis, but we don't actually have dump trailers for that. But we'll hire a company to haul the lime to the field, and then have an end loader and a dry spreader that we use for lime applications. And that's part of what guys are using for their soil tests, is to get an idea where their pHs are at and if they need lime applications. But also for their phosphorus and potassium levels. The phosphorus product will be usually DAP or MAP. And then for the potassium source, we use potash. There's a lot that guys are going into this like now that they're more focused on some micros and stuff. So we will put some AMS or sulfur source in that. But most of our customers don't focus on those in the fall. We more use that at the post-time application in crop, with a foliar application at the post-application time. So if you can actually see behind me here is some of our bins, and then if you look farther back, this is our blender. So we'll take the product from these bins. We'll use an end loader and load it into our hopper over here. We put it all in this hopper, each product, and then we get our mixtures. We do also make some VRT recommendations. We can do that. I do that with a program through our soil testing company out of Fairbury United Soils, and I can do that, and then we plug that into our applicators, into the dry applicator computer, and then it basically just does it on a 2.5 acre grid scale. That this part of the farm needs 100 pounds, where this part of the farm needs 300 pounds. So that's kind of what we do there for dry. And then
I'm gonna cut in for just a moment. I'm gonna ask them, do you know, as he's mentioning some of these, what are the 3 macronutrients? Nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. And I want to go back. So you're going to talk, and I know you're going to hit a little bit more on those 3 macros in terms of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. You mentioned some micros, specifically sulfur. Are those common? Is there something unique about the trade territory that we have those micros? Are those kind of standard? Are there micros that other places have to add that we just don't around here? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I guess it's more towards the university research, and like we sell Beck's seed here, so a lot of their research that they do there are focusing on sulfur and zinc deficiencies. So you'll see that sometime in corn that guys really struggle with that, and you'll get that information through a soil test. Obviously we have our base soil test that we take for your 3 macros, but then we do toss in some micros, and some guys really won't even pay attention to that. I mean, some of them are just there to get the three main ingredients. So that's where it's kind of hit or miss, and it's not that don't matter. It's just is what they're focusing on at the moment. So.
No, that's helpful. Who does? You said that United Soils down in Fairbury. Do you actually go out and pull the bags, or do you just call them and tell them where the field's at?
Oh no, yeah, we just call them. Back when we used to do our own soil testing, we did do our own pulling applications, but we do not do that here. That is, they have their own crews that go out and pull them. We just give them the location of the field, and then they have their own pulling crews that do that.
Any questions? How often do they soil sample a field?
Most of our customer base is on 4-year rotations of soil testing. We will have some guys that do like to do it every 2 years, but that's very few and far between. Most of them feel that they can get a decent soil test recommendation in a 4-year period, and then also that kind of lines up with, you know, if we need lime then those 4 years, that you can make those applications and spread that cost across those acres for that period of time to help pay that off. But and there's other companies that do it as well. I mean, we've got some competitors around here that do their own pulling or have their own labs or just prefer rather to pull them and know that they're actually pulling it in the field for their customers. But and the big thing for us is we're big fall soil testers here. We try to get into some springtime stuff because it makes it for easier decisions come fall. That's what kind of stinks. We're limited to lime in the fall, and if we can get those soil tests done in the springtime, right after the crop goes in, before it gets too tall to get a 4-wheeler through there, it makes it easier come this time of the year, you know, August and September, when guys are just getting ready and they're in the shops most of the time, so you can make those decisions. And then once they get in the combine, all they got to do is call you when they're done, and those decisions are already made and they don't have to think about it. So.
Any of you have any idea the last time fields that you're interested in were tested? You're on. Oh, ask it a little louder for that.
How many tests do you do per field?
So on a per field basis, how many soil samples?
Yeah.
How many samples would they pull in an 80-acre field type?
So there's actually usually 3 different grid sizes that that are pretty common. There's 1.1 acre grids, 2.5 acre grids, and 3.3 acre grids. We usually stick with half-acre grids. We feel that we get the best bang for our buck at that grid size, and it still gives you a decent idea of the fertility on that farm. So yes, there is. I mean, 80, you'll have that 15, 16 samples in an 80-acre field.
And each sample typically has about 5 probes in the ground 5 times per sample.
Correct. Yeah. The guys that we use, they have a 4-wheeler rigged with it basically at every time they stop, it takes a sample at each corner of the 4-wheeler and then one directly in front of it. And then every 4 years or every time you get it retested, they take GPS coordinates of those locations and they will go back to them every time. So you're still getting a great representation of the farm because they're going back to the same areas every year that they sample. So you know how your fertilizer applications are helping the farm.
Excellent. And we'll go through some of that sampling stuff as well. I think we've got a probe here. We'll go out and probe the softball field and take a look.
There you go.
Other questions as he looks at. So this is the and you kind of panned around on the dry shed. Can you get a little closer on any of those different types of fertilizers just to see what they might look a little bit different? I know we've got some there over your shoulder and.
Yeah. So this is I don't know if you can see that. There you go. This is our DAP bin here. So this is the phosphorus source that we're using. Because of the size of our building, we don't really have the space to store a bunch of different product. If you look at that, there you go. And there's potash right there. the potash is pink or red in color, and then the DAP is like a whitish brown looking color. But we have 5 total bins here, 3 of which are potash and 2 are DAP. And that's just the way that we normally spread a lot of potash, especially like we do a lot of potash on corn stalks before guys chisel farms, just for kind of a split application and going into beans. Beans like their potassium more, and the corn likes the phosphorus more. Obviously you need both to produce a crop, but we try to front load the potash on corn stalks going into beans. We have been MAP in the past, but what we're running into this year is the Illinois River shutting down. So we're having supply issues that we can get DAP when we want it. So that's kind of why we moved towards that product instead of using MAP. MAP is a greater source of phosphorus and less nitrogen in it, and the DAP has more nitrogen than phosphorus in it.
Now this is just, I'm not even asking. I'm curious, why is DAP, is it because of just more people want MAP, or aren't they coming from the same type of place?
Yeah, so they are, and I think the problem that we're running into supply issues is exactly that, is that we have more guys wanting the MAP. Obviously, if you're supplying if that's what you're truly using it for as a phosphorus source, then you really don't need that much nitrogen. You don't need that much nitrogen in the mix. So the DAP being 1846.0 and the MAP being 1152.0, guys just figure that they can, in the fall, you're going to get more phosphorus, or you'd like to get more phosphorus out of it. You don't need so much of the nitrogen, especially with before you plant your corn crop, you're going to use ammonia or UAN. So I think more guys are moving towards that MAP product, but we just decided this year that we were going to switch back to DAP just because we didn't want to run out, basically. And if we did, we'd have to I think they said the nearest place they would have it would be Quincy if we did run into river issues. Now they're saying the river's supposed to open up here the middle of November, so you would hope that would be correct, but timelines don't always happen that way. So we didn't want to be basically strapped where we had to haul all day just to get 5 loads of fertilizer. So.
You mentioned, and you kind of showed us the MAP and the DAP, and then you just mentioned some urea. And maybe I missed it there. Do you have any urea in there at the moment?
No, nope. Urea is a very hard product to store, and what we primarily use that on is wheat ground, and we don't do a whole lot of wheat around here. Normally, if we do need urea, we'll just go get it from the terminal and bring it back. I think what you heard me say was UAN, so 32% liquid nitrogen.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I got distracted by the thought of urea for a moment. No. Any questions in the fertilizer shed there? What's the, you're going to show us how we put it on, and you already kind of showed us how to mix it. So we'll get to the applicators at some point here. But that's
Yep.
basically all of your dry options right there.
Yep.
Have you taken pictures of the new shed over on 23 and said, hey, we need a new fertilizer shed?
Yes, I have. I think we're going to build a new grain bin before we build a new fertilizer shed.
I've not been to the new fertilizer shed over there yet.
What's that?
I said I've not been inside of it. I've just seen the outside.
Yeah. From what I know of it, I don't know that I'd really want one like that. The problem being is it's all canvas, so I don't know that I would want a canvas building. I mean, obviously our building here, if you can tell in the background, it's made of wood because the fertilizers are so corrosive. But I would take this is probably an 80-year-old building, but I'd take this over a canvas building any day. So.
Well, and I guess I kind of wanted to go into that you mentioned why it's made out of wood, and I want to go back and highlight that because that's also you know, why they might go out of canvas instead of a traditional steel shed. You don't see a lot of fertilizer buildings that are steel barns, and why is that with dry fertilizer?
Yeah, so basically potash is salt. So it's a very salt-based product. And if you can see, well, you can see it right here. This is the motor that runs the drum. Once that dust gets on anything, I mean, everything in this building that is metal is rusted. So that's why most people tend to use stainless and something that's non-corrosive, non-mild steel product. So like here, this actually used to be an old coal building, but it was made of wood way back in the day. But the reason, you know, you see your pole building machine with tin on them, we would not use that just because if the dust were to get on that, it would basically rust through and allow moisture in. So our building here is made primarily of all wood, shingled on top, vinyl siding on the outside. So try to keep the least amount of metal in the building itself. And just like the one on 23 that most of you may drive by at FS, that's an entirely canvas building. People are doing the same thing, kind of like what they did out at the state garage out there by the hospital, where they have their salt. I mean, that's basically what this potash is salt. And they're using hoop buildings or you know, a canvas roof building with concrete on the bottom, just to avoid the rust and corrosion.
Question. Amazes me how fast fertilizer can rust stuff.
What was the question?
No, I was just telling them that it amazes me how fast fertilizer can make things rust.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to find something that I just put in here last year, but I mean, it doesn't. In a course of a year, everything will be rusted. Here I even got there's a wrench, obviously a mild steel wrench that just gets corrosion all over it. So yeah, I try to keep it off as much as you can. Most of our application boxes and our machines are stainless steel. Obviously you can't make an entire sprayer out of stainless steel, so we try to roll those machines as much as we can. Normally every 3 to 4 to 5 years, we'll try to switch machines, because if we're using it for liquid nitrogen and for fertilizer in the fall, the undercarriages and everything on them will be rusted. So. Any other questions right now?
No. I think we're good.
So
I mean, you can try and go outside, see how much the wind's blowing.
Yeah. So I'll just step outside here, and if it gets too windy and it sounds like I'm muffled, just go ahead and stop me, and I'll come back in here so you guys can kind of hear. But what my plan is here, I'll just kind of pan around to the area, and then I think that's what I'll do. I'll just pan around to each item, and they're basically 3 different colors. And if you have a question on it, just tell me. You know, the thing that was blue, if you can explain that a little more or whatever, I can surely do that. But I'll try to talk while I'm running around here. So I'm gonna switch it up here. So when coming out here, in line over here, which look like some field equipment, tillage equipment, these are actually our ammonia bars. Ammonia is a nitrogen source that we use primarily in the fall. We will do some springtime applications with that, but it's a very old source that has been used for quite a few years. The reason most people like to use this is because it's cheap, and their alternative to that is liquid UAN nitrogen in the springtime. Does that sound all right, Jesse? Can you hear?
Yeah, that sounds good. We're catching just a little bit of wind, but we can hear you crystal clear.
Okay, sounds good. So like I said, we're using these in the fall time and in the springtime, early springtime before planting. If we're doing it before planting, we want to shoot for, I say 2 weeks to be safe. But if you're making a spring application of ammonia and then trying to plant into that a corn crop, you have some fear of burn. So it will burn the corn because it's too hot. But what we're shooting for in the fall, not too many of the guys, old school guys, will try to shoot a full rate of nitrogen, but most of them are usually trying to split it at least a half to 2/3 fall ammonia, and then they'll come back with some weed and feed to finish off their full nitrogen needs for that corn crop. The one thing I will say about ammonia is it is extremely, extremely dangerous. If you guys see these little white, look like LP or propane tanks going down the road, those are ammonia tanks in the fall. They have green logos on them. They are very dangerous and they will kill you. And that is, I mean, it takes a little whiff to knock you out. So I will say, if you do see them driving down the road, please be careful. We've actually had some incidents here at Graymont where people ran stop signs and rolled tanks over and stuff, but luckily nobody was injured in those. So
Go back on the, can you go to the bar, and I think there's two parts, one of which is, oh, you're right there. Show where, like, the injector, like maybe, and then the other one is, and you can see it right behind you, where it turns it from the liquid that's in the, or where it converts it there on the bar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the coolers.
Yep.
So yeah, basically, these are the coolers right here. This is a 16 knife bar, so we use 2 coolers on this. If you go anything lower than 16 knife, you only have to have one of them. But that is where that exchange is made. So the ammonia is in the liquid form, and then we will basically cool this down and turn it into a gas to shoot into the ground. And then where we actually do that is in the knives. So they all have hoses piped up, and then we'll just I don't know if you can see that very well. There you go. And then they run to these knives here. These will go into the soil, and then right behind them there's a little pipe that ejects right behind that knife.
And the other part with why, ammonia works well around here is because our ground will actually seal it and hold it, right?
Yep. So some of the sandier soils, a little tougher, a little harder to keep that around. But you get over in the Flanagan area out west of Pontiac, you get that good black dirt that'll hold that ammonia in the soil. So.
Questions on ammonia? Well, I want you to remember this as we go back, because we will talk about, we'll get in, and he mentioned some of those numbers on what the fertilizer makeup is of a few of them. We're going to spend a lot of time on that the next 6 weeks.
And just to kind of put that into perspective for somebody that maybe doesn't understand that, an average rate of fertilizer is going to be 200 of each. So 200 is the generic rate that you can use on dry fertilizer. So 200 pounds of potash and 200 pounds of DAP. So we're taking 400 pounds across an entire acre. That's what we're spreading on a farm. Ammonia, like I said, they'll do a half to 2/3. So in the fall, they'll shoot for 120 to 150 pounds, and then they'll come back and shoot another 50 to 60 pounds on top of that. Some guys use different formulas. Some guys say a pound a bushel, 0.8 pounds a bushel. So usually what we're shooting for around here is that 175 to 225 pounds of N per acre to produce a corn crop. I guess if there's no other questions on that, the next I guess I'll take to 3 different things. I've got 2 dry applicators, and then you can actually see our sprayer.
Nice.
Any other
Or you can, and at some point, if you pan over to your your water tower.
Oh, 32 tank?
Yeah. It's,
Yeah. Yep.
it's going to lose a little effect since we can't walk up to it just on how the sheer size of it.
Yeah, exactly. So right behind me here, this is our Terrigator. This is actually a three-wheeled machine. It does a little bit of fertilizer, but most of its life is spreading lime. And the only reason for that is because our loader isn't big enough to get around our other machine, our John Deere. But this Terrigator, it's been a good machine. We've had it for a long, long time. It used to do liquid every once in a while, but it stays dry all the time. Everybody wonders, there's green ones, there's red ones, there's yellow ones. And the reason we use this is because it's obviously your footprint on the field for compaction is less. So if you can see right the front, there's one big tire and then there's two in the back. So you're only running over that portion through the field one time. Whereas if you have one with two tandem tires, obviously you're running over it twice. There is the spinners. So what happens is we fill the thing. You can see the box there. We fill that box with lime, and then there's a conveyor belt underneath it that conveys it back to the back. And then these two spinners here will actually spread that out across the field. So most of our lime comes from local quarries here. We are fortunate that we live so close to them. There's other areas where you get south of here. I think the nearest one south of here would be like Lincoln, and then you got the Pontiac area, and then you go up north to like Marseilles into Peru before you get into the other quarries, rock quarries. So, questions on lime?
I highlight that because one of the things that that sticks out to me with what you said is that we have the local areas. Back where I grew up, if you were wanting lime spread, that lime might get delivered to the field and sit in the field piled up for a week or two because it was when you could get it trucked there. And around here, you don't see piles of lime sitting there in the fall because it's so close that typically they can bring it in and get it spread within 48 hours. That just means less pile up and opportunity to blow away in the field.
Yep, and the thing that we have around here is the lime that we have with the three quarries that we have down by McDowell. They're high quality lime. There is some truck it into Indiana because there's a lot of sulfur. There can be a lot of sulfur in that rock. So that's why. I mean, it's almost like a honey hole here in Livingston County that we're fortunate enough to have good quality lime for applications. Like I said, those sulfur, you want to keep in mind your sulfur numbers, but sometimes too much sulfur is not a good thing. So that's why we do have you'll see trucks from out of state that they may come here and get one load, and that load could cost you, I don't know, $20 a ton to get it trucked back or something ungodly like that. So that can affect it. It's an expensive product. And to put that into perspective, a rough 2-ton spread of lime across a farm is going to cost you this year probably around $26. So that's why I say when we do this every 4 years, you want to spread that cost across those acres for 4 years. And guys that are cash renting farms, you got to talk to your landlords about that because this, the lime sticks around and you may not be able to utilize it. So you want to try to, like I said, spread that cost across the acres. Any other questions on that?
I think we're good on lime.
Okay. The next machine I'm going to, this is we actually have a combo unit. So John Deere makes a machine that you can put a sprayer and a dry box spreader on. And this machine here is a 2014 4940 that we combo. We switch it back and forth, but the other machine is a newer one, also a John Deere. But we just keep that on a sprayer all year round, just in case we do some fall spraying and stuff like that. So behind me here, this is the John Deere here. This is the one with the dry box on it. And you may ask why do you keep the older one with the dry box on it? And that's because the older machine, it's already seen a dry box before, and like I said, the corrosion from the fertilizer. That's why we're trying to keep our old machines. They're going to get more wear and tear on them, and that way we keep the newer ones nice for liquid application. That's a little less corrosive because, well, I guess you can see it right here. Rust coming in on that. So this machine here takes us about 45 minutes to take the wet booms off, the boom kit off of it and put the dry box on it. And then we have big flotation tires. And like I was telling you with the 3-wheeler, this is a little different because you've got 2 big tires going across that same spot. Like we can load the VRT applications into this machine, and we've got if I go up to the top here, you can actually see where it's got separate bins. So one bin you can put the product that you're going to use most, which is either DAP or potash, and then the back bin, they have 2 separate belts that they apply that for. Some spots in the farm they may not even need any, so that the one belt will shut off.
So VRT stands for variable rate technology, right?
Correct.
And so what is, and that's kind of where I was gonna come back to these guys. The 3-wheeler doesn't necessarily have the VRT. This one does. What's that mean, and how does that impact what you get, the decision making?
So the VRT applications, they both can't have the technology to do it. We actually do VRT line as well. So we'll take those soil test maps, and maybe a certain part of the farm only needs a ton, and the other 2 parts of the farm need 3 ton. We can do that on that, and we can also do that with fertilizer, but you can only do it with one product at a time because our 3-wheeler has just one big bin. Like I showed you here, this has 2 bins, so you can separate both those products, and they go on at different speeds. How that impacts us, most guys will, I call a soil test a guideline, not the Bible. So, guys like to see where their farms are at and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and making sure that their soil test or their soil fertility is at where it needs to be or above. But it's not always, one single spot with 5 different samples isn't going to be a true representation of that whole farm. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt and just see it as a guideline and to try to see where you're at on fertility wise. But for us, the VRT, it used to be real big a couple of years back, but the problem is in agriculture you can VRT your seeding rates and your different multi-hybrid planters and stuff like that you're constantly changing all this stuff. There's they're trying to VRT nitrogen and stuff like that, in the poorer ground, putting less nitrogen on, and the better ground putting more nitrogen on. That all these variables, you're making everything so variable that you don't know what is truly where your bottleneck is actually at. So that's why some people have gotten away from the VRT fertilizer because they're messing with some other things on their operation. So I would say of our acre spread, maybe 5 to 10% would actually be VRT. Most of what we do is flat spread at this point. So. Any questions on that?
No, I guess I kind of go out. We're gonna talk more, and they're gonna look more at some other VRT stuff when we start analyzing some soil maps. But I also I find that a little bit kind of in that interesting mode of if you're varying everything, how do you know which variation matters?
Yeah, and it's a variable every year. Every year is not going to be the same. Your rain totals are everywhere, but you try to get an idea of what you're doing right that's helping your yield at the end of the day. So where do you want to make variable in your operation? So that's where we've seen VRT kind of go these last few years. Too many guys are seeing that, we've VRT'd I've been here 5 years. So, when we first started taking soil tests and started making VRT maps, and you come back and, well, so where my fertility is the worst on that farm, on that soil test, is the best part of the farm. Well, that's just because that plant's utilizing that fertilizer in that area and depleting it. I mean, maybe you try to use a little bit there, but like I said, yeah, there's a lot of question marks, and you gotta try to figure out what's best for you. So the other thing I'll take. Go ahead, Jesse.
No, I was
you have
just asking them for other questions as I was kind of looking out here. So no other questions at the moment.
Okay. So this one here, this is our sprayer. This is brand new. It's 2020. And we actually ran this last year as a demo, and actually ended up purchasing it. But the reason we keep this liquid is we've been having more and more of our no-till guys. If you see the beautiful purple fields in the springtime, those weeds aren't actually beautiful to a farmer. So we try to kill those in the fall, so when they overwinter, they don't come back in the springtime. Those purple flowers will actually wrap up in field cultivators and planters and stuff like that. So that's what we try to kill in the fall. Usually what we're making is just a generic application of 2,4-D or dicamba, or there's another residual product called Autumn Super that we use. But we're seeing it more and more. We used to only do, a couple hundred acres, but we try to get at least 2 days worth of running. So we'll probably do 1,500 to 2,000 acres in a year. But something, like I said, it's been becoming more and more popular, even in the tillage situation. If you have a bad infestation of henbit, that actually not good come planting time. So we're trying to get rid of that. It's just if you're thinking about your yards, in the early springtime, you'll have dandelions in there. You can actually kill those dandelions in the fall. If you spray in the fall, you can do the same thing. You spray in 2,4-D. You're just trying to not allow those plants to germinate through the winter, and then come back and they'll show their face in the springtime. So this machine will hold 1,200 gallons of product and carrier and product, and usually we're spraying anywhere from 12 to 20 gallons, just depending on what kind of product we're using and what that actual product calls for on rate. So.
Do you move any nitrogen or fertilizer through the sprayer too?
Yeah. Yep. So the next place we're going here is actually our UAN tank, and that's where in the pre-plant situations, that's where we spray for corn ground. We'll spray anywhere from 20 to 60, 70 gallons of out of a sprayer at a time. And this is, I've tried to get over there.
See
the big tank. Looks like a big rust bucket, but that's just, we have not painted it yet. So we put this in 2018, and it's the winter of 2018. And this thing will hold 950,000 gallons worth of product of liquid nitrogen. And so not quite 1 million. And if you're driving on 23 and you see the one that FS has, that's 1.5 million. So it's just another half size bigger than this one. But let's get a little closer there. So that's what we'll apply that through the sprayer along with some pre-plant herbicide to kill the weeds, and then also grow a corn crop with the nitrogen source.
So beyond the sprayer, how else is UAN applied?
So yeah, we can do that at side dress time. Actually, it can be done with a planter as well. Around here, we don't have a whole lot of planters with liquid on them. It's becoming more and more popular, just like everything else. Guys trying to think of what to, I guess, logistically make it easier on themselves, but putting it on with a planter does get hard, because not only are you having to fill the planter with seed, but you also have to fill it with nitrogen or ATS. But and then we'll put it on pre-plant, and then once the crop's up, about B5 stage, guys will start side dressing. You can side dress ammonia or UAN, but most of our customer base usually uses the liquid version, and most of that being some of our customer base is getting older in age, and the use of nitrogen or the use of ammonia is very labor intensive. We're using the liquid form. You basically just hook up a hose, pump it in, and apply it that way.
So is your UAN 32 or 28?
32. Yep. So anything south of I-80 in Illinois, you can store UAN 32% at 500,000 or more. Obviously, the farther north you go, so like if you get up into like Wisconsin, those numbers get to at least 750,000 gallons that you need to overwinter. And the reason that they'll do that is the product will actually crystallize over winter, and then not come back out of crystallization. So you have to resuspend it to get those crystals out of it.
There's a chemistry moment for all of you. Any questions? Nothing? Bosnick, you got anything?
No, not right now.
Grove? Sophie? That leaves President. Any questions?
Why does it crystallize?
He's asking why does it crystallize? He asked it in a scared way though.
Asked it in a scared way.
Well, like I forced him to ask a question.
Yeah, because it freezes. So, yeah, that's the biggest issue is even like some of these pipes, like this one right here, the piping that we have here, we actually have air chucks on it where we'll actually blow it out in the fall so that over winter we don't get crystallization in the pipes, where it's basically just like ice is what it is, but it's the salt in the product coming together trying to form basically an ice chunk. So the more mass that you get, that's why you'll see like the one at FS is painted black. The more heat you can get on the outside of the tank, that product inside of there will stay warmer. I mean, if you take this one and you pop the lid in the middle of the winter time and it's 20 degrees out, you'll feel a heat wave coming out of the tank.
Other questions? I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go down a little separate away from the fertilizer world here, Philip. Is some of the requirements in terms of people you have working in the fertilizer and agronomy space there. What's some of your background, and what's some of the background that folks have that are working in this space?
Yeah, yep. I'm actually going to run back to my truck. I think I'm about to lose all my battery. But so I went to school at Pontiac, obviously. Graduated, went to U of I for 4 years. Graduated from U of I in 2012 and got a job with Monsanto, which is now Bayer.
Was it a crop science degree?
It was an ag business degree, markets and management. Yep. No, I was not a crop science major, believe it or not. So then after that, I went into seed production for Monsanto. I worked in Arizona for 3 years in cotton production. And then after leaving Arizona, I got a job with Monsanto again in Mason City, Illinois, which is down by the Lincoln and Springfield area. doing soybean production. So the soybeans that you may see on the marketplace right now, the extent beans, I actually helped in growing those in the central Illinois area. And then after that, I think I was there about 8 months, and this position at the co-op actually opened up. So I ended up taking this job. I've been here since the fall of 2015. So didn't really kind of switched jobs, I guess. For Monsanto, I was doing more production side, and then here obviously more retail side, more dealing with farmers, your local farmers. That's I've really enjoyed, but you can't ask for a better industry to work in. Working with a daily farmer that is essentially feeding the world. Most of the guys that I have working for me, one of my operators went to Western Illinois. He got a crop science degree from Western. Another operator that I have went to JJC for 2 years and then came back, got a job locally, and then the job at the co-op opened up here. Another kid that works for me went to Eureka College and actually worked at the Mycogen plant there in Pontiac, right by 23 by Caterpillar, and that plant obviously shut down, and he's a local Graymont kid. And then another kid that we have that works with us from Lexington, he went to JJC for 2 years and actually interned with us in the feed mill and in the agronomy department 2 separate summers, and he went on to work for a cattle farm for a year, and then ended up coming back, and I hired him on full time. So a lot of different areas, and I think some guys may. I don't know. Is this class going to talk to Matt on Friday tomorrow?
No, tomorrow Matt is with the intro kids, just kind of looking at career, kind of careers, and that was kind of my reason to grab was as I look around, even as you mentioned, a lot of students that have been through these 4 walls here that are now Graymont Co-op is kind of feeding off of some local ag programs for a lot of the people that are working.
Yeah, yep. And Katie that I work with, she's local, went to Pontiac High School, went to U of I, same time I did. So I mean, Pontiac, Flanagan, the JJC, Parkland, U of I, and then Matt Johnson. He's our seed guy. He's a Pontiac kid or Odell kid that went to Pontiac and went to ISU, JJC, then ISU. So there's a lot of different ways to get there, and sometimes it just brings you back home. So.
What questions do you guys have? Anything? I really appreciate this, Philip. No, we've got, I think it was really good. And I guess I was also able to ask a number of questions because I know where this class is going. Like I know where we're gonna get to. And so my hope is that as I ask those a little bit, that precursor, that prequel to where we're gonna get into as we start studying more soil fertility and get into the soil side and plant nutrient side.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions when you leave, feel free to have Mr. Faber contact me. And if you guys get into more of the soil testing stuff and need some information or want some more help, I'm more than happy to do this again. So
we appreciate that, and the Graymont Co-op. So I'm going to end the recording here.